The river glistens under the morning sun, its gentle ripples reflecting the blue sky. Birds call from the cypress trees, and the scent of wet earth lingers in the air. This place, my home, has been in our family for generations. A small but sturdy house built on the riverbank, shaded by Spanish moss and history. I step onto the porch with my coffee, watching the water move slow and steady. This land, this house, it's more than property, it's legacy. My great-grandfather built it with his own hands, back when black folks weren't even allowed to own land in this county. He worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, and bought this patch of freedom. Now it's mine. Or so I thought. A crisp white envelope is wedged into my screen door. HOA letterhead. My stomach knots. The Riverbend Homeowners Association, a name as polished and deceitful as the people who run it. I never agreed to be part of their HOA, never signed a contract, never paid their ridiculous fees. But that hasn't stopped them from trying. I tear the envelope open. Final notice. Your property is in violation of Riverbend HOA standards. Failure to comply will result in penalties, including but not limited to fines, lien placement, or property removal. I clench my jaw. Property removal? What the hell does that mean? Morning, Elijah. A voice drawls from the driveway. I turn to see Grant Holloway, the HOA president, leaning against his spotless white truck, sipping coffee like he owns the whole damn town. He's dressed in his usual getup, polo shirt tucked into pressed khakis, a Rolex peeking from his sleeve. A man who's never worked a day with his hands but walks like he built the world. You get my letter? He asks, smiling like we're friends. I hold up the paper.
Yeah.
What the hell is this? He shrugs. Just a reminder. Your house sits too close to the water, which violates HOA regulations. Safety hazard, you know. I scoff. My house has been here for 100 years. Longer than your damn HOA. He sips his coffee. Rules are rules. I step down from the porch. I never agreed to be part of your HOA. He smirks. You don't have to. The HOA voted last year to annex your property into the neighborhood. It's for the community's best interest. I grit my teeth. This isn't about safety. It's about power. Control. My home doesn't fit their manicured aesthetic. And let's be real, I don't either. Grant claps me on the shoulder, like I should be grateful. Don't worry, Elijah. If you can't meet the regulations, we'll take care of it for you. There's something in his tone that makes my skin crawl. He drives off, leaving tire tracks in my gravel driveway. I watch his truck disappear, that letter still clenched in my fist. Something tells me this isn't just about fines. Something tells me they're planning to take everything. And I'll be damned if I let them. The first sign that something's wrong comes the next morning. I wake up to the sound of metal clanking outside, like tools scraping against wood. My pulse kicks up as I grab my jacket and push open the door. 2 men in neon vests stand near my dock, measuring tape stretched between them. One holds a clipboard, nodding as if confirming some pre-planned decision. Can I help you? I call out, stepping off the porch. The taller one, a burly man with a construction badge clipped to his vest, barely looks at me. Just doing an assessment. HOA business. My hands clench. On my property? You're within Riverbend HOA jurisdiction, he replies flatly. They requested an inspection for safety compliance. I glance at the clipboard, my gut twisting. It's not just a routine check. There's a printed work order, already filled out. Planned removal. Unauthorized dwelling. I step closer. Let me see that. The man quickly tucks the clipboard under his arm. You'll get the official notice soon. I don't like this. I don't like any of this. Before I can press further, a familiar voice cuts through the air. Elijah, morning. I turn to see Grant Holloway, stepping out of his white truck like he owns the damn sunrise. His sunglasses glint in the light, hiding the calculation in his eyes. He strolls up, casual as ever, but there's an edge beneath his smile. Didn't mean to startle you, he says, nodding at the workers. Just a little preemptive work. Preemptive for what? I ask. Grant sighs like I'm being difficult. Look, Elijah. The HOA takes safety very seriously. Your house is too close to the river. If a storm comes through, debris could end up floating into other properties. Liability, you understand. My house has been here for a century, I snap. You think one of your little HOA meetings changes that? He chuckles, shaking his head. I know this is hard for you, but rules are rules. We sent you multiple notices. If you don't bring the property up to code, we'll have to step in. He gestures to the clipboard. What does planned removal mean? I demand. Grant gives me that rehearsed, patronizing look. It means we're prepared to handle it if you don't. I take a slow breath. They're not just fining me. They're planning to tear my home down. My fists tighten. You have no right. Grant sighs dramatically, then leans in just slightly. His voice drops low and smug. See, Elijah, the thing is, you're the only one out here who's a problem. We both know Riverbend's got a certain standard. I feel my blood run hot. I know what he means. I am the problem because I don't look like the rest of them. I grit my teeth. You need to leave. Now. He raises his hands in mock surrender. Just giving you a heads up. Then he smiles. Wouldn't want you to be surprised when the trucks show up. I watch him go, my heart hammering in my chest. I don't have proof yet, but I know one thing. They're coming for my home. I don't sleep that night. Every time I close my eyes, I hear Grant's voice, smooth, patronizing, filled with the kind of confidence only a man like him can afford. We're prepared to handle it if you don't. By sunrise, I've made my decision. If the HOA thinks they can bulldoze my family's legacy without a fight, they've got another thing coming. I spend the morning making calls. First to the county records office, then to a lawyer specializing in property disputes. The answer is the same each time. Legally, I don't belong to the HOA. But that doesn't mean they can't cause problems. If they've got a judge in their pocket or a loophole buried in fine print, I could still lose everything. That's when I decide to get ahead of them. I drive to the HOA office, a glassy building sitting in the heart of Riverbend's pristine shopping district. The kind of place where people sip artisanal coffee while deciding who does and doesn't belong in their community. Inside, the receptionist, a young woman with a tight bun and an even tighter smile, barely looks up. Do you have an appointment? No, but I need to speak to Grant Holloway, I say. Her smile doesn't waver. Mr. Holloway is in a meeting. Then I'll wait. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. She's about to dismiss me when a door swings open behind her. Grant steps out, laughing with a couple of board members. The laughter dies the second he sees me. Elijah, he says smoothly. Didn't expect to see you here. I step forward. Yeah, funny thing. I looked into your little planned removal. Turns out you don't have the legal right to do a damn thing to my property. Grant exhales, shaking his head like I'm a stubborn child. That's not exactly true. The HOA doesn't own my land. I cut in. And I never agreed to your rules. So, if you or your crew come near my house again, I'll have a lawsuit with your name on it. A flicker of something crosses his face. Annoyance. Maybe even respect. But then it's gone, replaced by that same condescending smile. I hear you, he says. I do. But I think you're missing the bigger picture. He pulls out his phone, swipes the screen, and turns it toward me. A demolition permit. Already approved. My stomach drops. How the hell did you get this? He pockets the phone. Turns out, Riverbend has strict floodplain regulations. Your house sits right on the line. And since the HOA represents the community, we made a case that your property poses a risk. The city agreed. I step closer. You pulled strings. Grant smiles. I made sure things went the way they were supposed to. Rage burns through me. You're a damn crook. He leans in, lowering his voice. Elijah, let me give you some advice. Take the buyout offer. It's more than fair. Take the money, pack up, and move somewhere better suited for you. I don't miss what he's saying. Somewhere that isn't here. Somewhere I don't disrupt their perfect little neighborhood. I force myself to stay calm. Not happening. He exhales, shaking his head. Then I guess we'll do this the hard way. Fighting back. I leave the HOA office furious, but I know one thing. Grant isn't untouchable. If he pulled strings to fast-track that permit, there has to be a trail. That night, I call my brother, Malik. "You're telling me they filed a permit to demolish your house?" he says, his voice tight with anger. "Yeah, and they got it approved fast, too fast." There's a pause. Then, "Send me everything. The documents, the names, the permit number." Malik isn't just my brother. He's a judge. And not just any judge. He's one of the toughest in the state when it comes to corruption cases. "You think there's something illegal here?" I ask. "Absolutely," he says. "But we need proof." The next day, Malik makes a few calls. Turns out, the city official who approved my demolition permit? He's a known friend of Grant Holloway. Worse, Grant's been pressuring other black homeowners in Riverbend, forcing them to sell under the same safety excuse. "This isn't just about me. It's a pattern. And now, we have the proof." I send copies of everything to the local news. A reporter calls me within the hour. "This story's big," she says. "We'll run it, but we need more." A statement. A confrontation. I exhale. I know exactly where to find Grant. And I plan to make sure he never sees this coming. The Riverbend HOA meeting is held in a private clubhouse, the kind built to keep people like me out. Chandeliers glow above a polished mahogany table where Grant Holloway sits at the head, surrounded by his board members. I walk in, feeling the weight of their stares. A few neighbors are here too, mostly older, mostly white, sipping wine in expensive sweaters. The air smells like privilege and false courtesy. Grant leans back in his chair, sipping his coffee like a king surveying his court. "Elijah," he says smoothly, "didn't expect you to show up." I drop a folder onto the table. "I figured I'd hear firsthand how you're planning to steal my house." He chuckles, shaking his head. "No one's stealing anything. You refuse to comply with HOA regulations. The city determined your house is a safety risk, so," he shrugs, feigning sympathy. "It's out of my hands." I lean forward, lowering my voice. "You don't actually believe that, do you?" He smirks. "Believe what?" "That I don't know what you did." Grant tilts his head, feigning confusion. "Elijah, I understand this is emotional for you." I slap another document onto the table. "Funny thing about corruption," I say. "It leaves a paper trail." He blinks just for a second, but I see the flicker of doubt. "You filed a demolition permit under false pretenses," I continue. "You claimed my house was a flood risk, but we pulled the historical data. My house has never flooded. Not once. But you knew that." His jaw tightens. "The city reviewed." I cut him off. "The city official who approved it? Turns out he's a close friend of yours. Emails show he expedited my permit at your request. That's called abuse of power." The room falls silent. Grant exhales through his nose, trying to regain control. "This is nonsense. The HOA operates within full legal." I slap down a final piece of paper, then explain why multiple black homeowners in Riverbend have been pressured into selling under the same safety risk claim. Murmurs ripple through the room. "I spoke to 3 of them." I continue. "They all got the same letters, the same threats. You forced them out one by one. And you were planning to do the same to me." Grant's smirk is gone now. His fingers drum against the table. "You don't have proof," he says. But there's a crack in his voice. I smile. "Actually, I do." The doors open. Malik steps in. The room shifts. Some people recognize him immediately. A murmur spreads. Grant's face drains of color. He knows exactly who my brother is. Malik walks up beside me, setting his briefcase down. "Judge Malik Carter," he announces, voice calm but commanding. "I've personally reviewed the case against my brother. And after speaking with city officials, I've decided to open a formal investigation into the Riverbend HOA for fraud, coercion, and racial discrimination." Gasps. Someone's wine glass clinks too hard against the table. Grant stiffens. "Now, wait just a second." "No," Malik says coolly. "You wait. We have evidence. Emails. Witness statements. Documents that show a pattern of targeted harassment against black homeowners." Grant opens his mouth, then closes it. He knows he's trapped. The silence is delicious. Now, Malik continues, I suggest you and your board prepare yourselves. Because by the time I'm done, this HOA will be disbanded, sued, and criminally investigated. Grant swallows. His hands grip the armrests of his chair like he wants to disappear into them. I lean forward, lowering my voice, so only he can hear. You thought I was just some guy you could push out, didn't you? I see it now, the shift in his eyes. The realization. He lost. And I won. Grant's face is a perfect mask of control, but his hands tell the truth, clenched white-knuckle tight around his chair. His eyes dart around the room, searching for an escape. But there isn't one. The HOA board sits frozen, wine glasses poised midair. The neighbors, some complicit, some merely ignorant, shift uncomfortably in their seats. They came expecting another routine meeting, another effortless flex of power. Instead, they're witnessing the public dismantling of their golden boy. Malik adjusts his suit jacket, his presence alone enough to shatter any illusion of authority Grant thought he had. I'm sure you understand the gravity of the situation. Malik continues, voice steady, judicial. Fraud. Abuse of power. Housing discrimination. He ticks them off one by one. These aren't HOA infractions, Mr. Holloway. These are felonies. Grant clears his throat, forcing a chuckle. Let's not get dramatic, Judge Carter. He straightens, trying to regain his composure. This is a misunderstanding. The HOA has every right to enforce safety regulations. You mean the same regulations you fabricated? I cut in. His nostrils flare. That's a strong accusation. It's not an accusation, Malik says, pulling a folder from his briefcase. It's evidence. He opens it, revealing printed emails, signed documents, timestamps. These emails between you and city officials show you personally requested fast-tracked demolition approvals for homes in this community. Grant's jaw tightens. Malik lays down another sheet. This is a sworn statement from one of the homeowners you pressured out. She was told her property was a hazard and that selling was her only option. But her home passed every safety inspection. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. People start whispering. I step forward, driving the final nail. You thought I was just some guy you could push around. Thought I didn't have the resources to fight back. I smirk. That's your problem, Grant. You assume people like me don't have power. Grant scoffs, but there's sweat on his brow now. This is ridiculous, he snaps. None of this proves anything. Malik exhales, like he's disappointed. Then maybe you'd like to explain this. He nods toward the doors. They swing open. A news crew walks in, cameras rolling. The room erupts. Gasps, shouts, chairs scraping against the floor. HOA members flinch, covering their faces. The neighbors look around, unsure whether to flee or watch the spectacle unfold. Grant bolts upright. What the hell is this? I grin. Oh, just a little insurance. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman with a microphone, strides forward. Grant Holloway, is it true you illegally pressured black homeowners into selling their properties? Flashes go off. A camera zooms in on Grant's stunned face. He raises a hand. No comment. Another reporter fires off a question. Did you fabricate safety violations to justify demolitions? No comment. A third reporter isn't even asking. She's reading from the documents in Malik's folder. City records show you approved demolitions through backdoor deals. Do you deny this? Grant stiffens. His mouth opens, but nothing comes out. He looks at the HOA board for help, but they're suddenly very interested in their shoes. Then, the real kicker. A city official steps into the room, flanked by two uniformed officers. Grant sees them, and for the first time, panic flashes in his eyes. Mr. Holloway, the official says, voice firm, we need to speak with you regarding the fraud allegations against your office. This is outrageous, Grant hisses, stepping back. You can't just. The officer holds up a warrant. We can. And we are. The room erupts again. Grant tries to backpedal, but the cameras are rolling, the reporters are shouting, and his perfect empire is crumbling in real time. His hands shake as he glares at me. You set me up. I smile.
No, Grant.
You did that all on your own. The officer steps forward. Mr. Holloway, you're coming with us. And just like that, the king of Riverbend loses his crown. The handcuffs click around Grant Holloway's wrists. The reporters are relentless, shoving microphones in his face, shouting questions he can't answer. His once pristine suit is rumpled, his smooth confidence shattered. The officers escort him through the crowd, cameras flashing, his downfall captured in high definition for the world to see. This morning, he was a man who thought he ran Riverbend. Now, he's just another corrupt official caught in the spotlight. As they load him into the police car, I meet his eyes one last time. He looks at me, not with anger, not even with hatred. Just shock. He never thought this could happen to him. I let a small smile tug at my lips. Told you this wasn't over. The car door slams shut. The officers drive away, taking Grant Holloway and his entire reign of power with them. The next few weeks are a whirlwind. The scandal explodes across news outlets. The Riverbend HOA is dissolved, its board members resigning one by one to avoid legal consequences. The city opens a full investigation into fraudulent property seizures. Homeowners, many of them black families who are forced out, are coming forward, demanding restitution. And they'll get it. Malik makes sure of that. Grant? He's facing charges for fraud, conspiracy, and housing discrimination. His bank accounts are frozen, his assets under investigation. Last I heard, his lawyers are scrambling to cut a deal. It won't help. Some men are too powerful to ever believe they can lose. That's their weakness. A neighborhood changed. The first time I step onto my front porch after everything settles, the air feels different. Lighter. I sip my coffee, watching neighbors pass by. Some of them, people who turned a blind eye for years, offer stiff nods, maybe even a small wave. Others cross the street, avoiding eye contact. It doesn't matter. Riverbend is mine, too. And it always was. That afternoon, an older black couple I've never met before stops at my driveway. The woman has silver-streaked locks, the man a sharp, dignified air. You the one who took down that HOA? The man asks. I nod. A slow smile spreads across his face. He extends a hand. I shake it. About time, he says. They've been pulling that mess for years. The woman squeezes my shoulder, her eyes warm. Thank you. And just like that, I know this fight wasn't just about me. It was about every family that got pushed out. Every person who was told, in quiet ways and loud ones, that they didn't belong. That ends now. A week later, I visit Malik at his office. He's leaning back in his chair, reading another case file. Big brother. He greets without looking up. What brings you? I set a coffee cup on his desk. Just wanted to say thanks. He finally looks at me, smirking. Told you. You had more power than you thought. I nod, taking a deep breath. Yeah, I do. I turn to leave, but before I step out, Malik calls after me. You thinking about moving? I grin over my shoulder. Hell no. I fought for my home, and I plan to enjoy every second of it.